Hello guys and welcome to our Division 3 game of tonight between Instinct Gaming and Praetorian. I am Rob, Ghostly Dreams Price, and joining me tonight is the illustrious Tig, the Celtic Tiger, Brennan. Tig, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, and if you've come to see competitive League of Legends, you're in the wrong place. We're going to have fun with our first Div 3 game. The first cast Div 3 game, that is. This is, of course, round 2. So both these teams with a win on the board. So this could be looking like the two teams shaping up for LAN as well. Not just because of that win, but they are some of the higher ranked in the Div 3. So we'll see how they come through.
Yeah, and they were actually quite surprising. We saw our own Coxie casting the games there last time, and they were actually quite good. I mean, I wasn't expecting so much of the map play and stuff to be coming out, but surprisingly good. So hopefully we'll have a good set of games today. As we're just jumping into the pick and bans, we can see they're coming out fast and quick in this one.
Yeah, and you see, the Darius band against Mr. Ducky, he has been practicing that a lot recently. The Malzahar and Ari band, the Ari band targeted I Am Forever. The Malzahar band just targeted everyone in general. Do not want to play against that anytime soon. On the other side, you see the Nautilus, Malphite, and Jinx. Again, the Jinx targeted Michael Sniper. The others kind of top lane, and Nautilus occasionally played in support. And I actually did see Princely Prince has practiced Malphite jungle as well, so that's also a possibility for them. Not any more than as a band.
Exactly. We have to see if Sharks. I'm glad he hasn't banned his Graves this time again, because he did accidentally ban that against himself in the last time around. So glad to see he hasn't followed suit again. So we're just seeing the Braum pick up, so putting a lot of pressure onto that. They really want that in the bot lane.
Yeah, and I think pick up here early of Cho'Gath is odd. They have picked their two solo laners early, which isn't what you generally want to do, because you want to give yourself at least the option to counterpick one of them. They haven't opted for that. They're going to go, you know what, we're taking Cho'Gath top and Orianna mid. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see as well if they do decide to maybe throw in something that can engage with it as well. I don't know what, if he wants to put in like an Alistair support or something. We've seen that Cow engage, but just wanting to lock that in very, very quickly. And we can see the Sivir as well hovered here. So really looking for that engage here with the Braum and the Sivir just speeding everybody up here.
Yeah, and I think the Braum early lock-in, this is something I saw in the last game. It's like they like to early lock in these supports, which is odd because they're not often heavily contested. Especially Villain has opted for Alistair more often than not recently, so I was expecting that in the support. He still has that option to pick it up. Now on the other side, they have the option to pick up. Looks like they're going to go for the AD carry and probably the mid laner here. I Am Forever has practiced a lot of Annie recently, and Annie, of course, with the 6.9 changes, is looking really strong in that mid lane.
Yeah, and we were talking about it just before the game, how he definitely does favour that Annie, so I'm not surprised to see it picked up again here. But, well, again, into that, Orianna is going to have some of the shields, so have a little bit of that survivability, but yes, definitely Annie very, very strong in the current meta. So just waiting for these next few picks to be coming through. But do you see any kind of team comp or anything coming out on the side of either of these teams that they tend to favour?
Well, I see on the left side here, you're looking at a good team fight comp, because you have that Sivir to quickly engage into the fights, you have the Braum Glacial Fissure or the Annie ultimate to quickly start these fights, massive AoE, CC and damage from the Annie. So depending what they follow up with here, this could be huge for them. I expect Sharks could go for his Graves, which as you mentioned, he hasn't banned this time, or even the Rek'Sai for that extra level of engage and CC. Both work, and they're both his biggest jungle champions. I'm interested to see here what they go for in the top lane. Now, they know he's going up against Cho'Gath, so there's plenty of things he could pick into this that work perfectly well.
Yeah, exactly, and that would be a very, very nice pickup as well if it was to go with the Rek'Sai. You could see the Annie getting that AoE lock up, and then of course the Rek'Sai coming in just to knock them all up a second time. So that'd be very, very nice. And there it is, that Graves that you were just talking about. And interesting to see as well, since we're seeing so much of this hard engage, what do you think of the lack of mobility on both of the carries that are coming out on Praetorian here?
Well, again, as I mentioned, look, you're looking at Praetorian here, you're looking at Instinct's comp here. You have this massive quick movement speed, a lot of quick engages. You could even build Hextech Protobelt onto Annie for that extra level of engage, and there's nothing these guys can really do. The best thing they can hope for is to respond with a Shockwave or the Trundle Pillar to just attempt to disengage, but it's going to be pretty difficult for them. They've also now got that Zac into the jungle, so they have a lot of tanks to get in the way, but these tanks will burn down to the damage eventually.
Yeah, and it's nice to see exactly with that last pickup of the Zac. That'll be really, really nice for that synergy between the Orianna and the Zac there. The Zac, if you jump into the middle of the team, of course, Orianna flying the ball onto him as well for that shockwave. Really nice pickup there. And it'd be interesting to see as well with the Trundle in the bot lane as well. That's a very, very mobile bot lane. So could see Sharks maybe prioritise that a little bit.
Yeah, but I'd also be interested in team fights. You have, as you said, the Orianna and the Zac. You can then follow that up with the Cho'Gath. And Cho'Gath, top lane, he's probably just going to build the Rod of Ages for his only AP source. Could build a little heavier into AP, but would probably start losing to the Scion as he stacks out more. So I'm expecting a Rod of Ages maybe into just straight tank stats. So it's going to be a really beefy lineup. It's going to be difficult for these guys to get through it, especially because the Scion Ultimate, which is probably the easiest of their engages, is able to be stopped by a good Trundle pillar. Again, that does rely on quick reactions to it, but I think more interesting to look at here is the Ignite taken on Zac.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting one, not opting for the flash there. We did see, of course, Limitless playing the Zac there in the games last night was very useful with those flashes, able to get in on top of Ferocity, but Princely Prince here, thinking of his own game type and is just going to take that Ignite, so going to put a lot of pressure here, especially when he goes for those ganks.
Well, he'd have to go for pressure because without flash, he's in a pretty bad spot. At Ignite, Zac isn't really your early game dueling jungler. He doesn't want to do that. The only thing I could think from Princely Prince right now is he going to opt for an AP Zac maybe? Try just burst people down quickly? Wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend a lot of these things these guys like to pick. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, an AP one would definitely be interesting, especially when he's only got that one way in, so we'll definitely need that survivability if he wants to try and make it out of these fights. But yeah, it's going to be an awful lot of damage, and I think it's going to be an awful lot on the AD carries, because once the burst comes out from these two mid laners, the AD carries are really going to have to pick up the damage.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to see if they can make this Jhin Trundle lane work, because it is a lot of upfront damage and can quickly burst down the lane, especially towards that level 6 when they can get rid of a lot of Brom's tankiness. However, if it starts falling behind, as you mentioned previously, he is extremely immobile. Trundle, while he has the pillar to disengage, that isn't enough if he's getting jumped on by things like the Sivir ultimate, like the Glacial Fissure, and even the Graves there. So they could easily go down if they start falling behind. They want to get ahead in this lane early and then continue rolling forward with it.
Yeah, I think Jhin will definitely be looking to try and use his ultimate, sit back a little bit from the team fight so he can get off that initial damage, avoid a lot of the burst coming through, and then try and move in. But it's going to be a very interesting game coming up. A lot of these guys, as we we're talking about, on the champs that they really do favour. So at least we know that we'll be having a good mechanical game out of a lot of these guys.
You would hope so, but a lot of this does remain to be seen. But I'm looking forward to it anyway. I'm looking forward to very explosive fights, and that's generally what the biggest, draw for Div 3 is. You expect to see a lot of fighting, a lot of skirmishing, and maybe that's why you opt for the Ignite. It is up more often than Flash.
Yeah, true, and it's definitely very, very helpful in these small skirmishes that we can see in the early game, particularly with only the single TPs there, not going to be the double TPs starting up all these fights like crazy across the map that we can see coming up in some of the more professional games and higher level games. So we'll have to see as well how they do decide to use a lot of these engages, and I think one of the funniest interactions I'm looking forward to seeing, as you were talking about that Trundle and Scion pillar, if the Scion is running into the middle of them and Trundle puts it up every so often, just see him shoot off at 90-degree angles. So I'm hoping it's just going to see the Scion train get completely derailed at one point and shoot off into the middle of nowhere.
Oh, is that similar to the Alistair thing with Draven Ultimate, where it just shoots off to the side for no reason?
Yeah, exactly. I really want it to happen.
I mean, even still, even if it doesn't work quite like that, he still just crashes into the pillar and can't do anything past that point. So either way, it's a fun interaction to see. And of course, if he gets caught on the wrong side of the fight, the Trundle ultimate, you have the subjugate on him, he goes immediately down to your damage, and then your engage turns into a quick attempted disengage.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with the follow-up that's going to be coming through from the knock-up from the Zac and the knock-up as well from the Cho'Gath. That's going to be a lot of AoE lock-up if they do decide to move into this. So we'll have to be playing it very, very safe when they are looking for these engages. So it should be I think these team fights are going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think all the summoners they have and the way these two comps work, both of them want to have these big explosive fights. It's just all about who executes, who goes first, and whether, for a lot of these guys, whether they group up. Because on both sides, you have these massive AoE kind of circles where if you get caught in it, you're just dead because they have so much to consistently land straight after it.
Yeah, it's just like a do not cross line in most of these team fights. It's who accidentally clicks that little bit too far forward and gets caught in the middle of it. But we are loading into the rift for this one, and this is going to be a real stormer here. And I'm loving this Scion skin already. This is one of my favorite skins in the game.
Yeah, it did actually come out recently, and again, as you were talking about, when the train gets derailed, the train actually gets derailed in this game. It just rolls straight forward and just crashes. I'm interested to see, like, the other skids are nice and stuff. Reverse Annie is one of the interesting ones. You don't see that too often.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a little bit terrifying seeing a bear dressed as a little girl, though. I'm not going to lie. Probably going for some of that intimidation here with that pickup, but it's going to be just a normal fan out here. So probably won't see too much in this early stages of the game.
Well, you have Ignite, you have Zac, and you do have that great thing if you just engage with Zac, and then you can just use the TP on his blob to save him. Could opt for that in this early game. They have the Ignite, they do have the advantage, but it's never nice to invade against a Braum level 1.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see if they are going to go for it. There's so many interactions in this that we get to see and hopefully bring out, so should be interesting at least, but both teams just kind of sitting about here, not really looking for too much, but he is going to get spotted by the ward there, so Zac is going to unballoon himself and go back towards his own jungle.
Yeah, we're seeing fairly standard starts. Looks like it's just going to be a bot side start for the junglers. And even though Zac isn't the most amazing early game jungler, he still can, like, obviously you need to kind of scale at least 2 levels into the E to make him really good at ganking, to get those interesting pathings down. On the other side, Graves is probably worse again, because he has no way of locking down. He relies on his own team to lock them down. So he should be looking towards that top and mid lane, and maybe the bot lane. You were saying that it's a possible choice because they are immobile, but it's very much on the Braum to land the stun then. So a lot easier to rely on the Scion and Annie engages, and then just quickly follow up with damage.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it is going to be a big part of this is if Instant Gaming here do ward up against that Zac, because as you were saying, some very, very unusual gank paths that he's capable of with that slingshot. We'll have to try and get those wards deep in the jungle so they don't get themselves caught out.
I see a lot of early wards from Praetorian. They do not want their Zac invaded, because that could have gone very well for them. Yes, he took Ignite, but he still can't fight a Graves. He's not a damage-oriented champion, and even though I did say it was possible he chooses to go AP, it doesn't look like that's what he's gone for with the strength of the Aegis.
Yeah, at least he will hopefully be able to survive some of these team fights without the flash, but it is definitely going to be a one-way ticket for him. So basically all the train jokes are going to be coming out in this one.
Yeah, I mean, why not? We could do with a few.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like Zac is just kind of hovering around this mid lane, so already looking to try and take advantage of something here. He is, as we were saying, sitting on quite a bit of damage. Here comes the slingshot, and he is going to go in. He's going to lock up Iron Forever there, taking an awful lot of damage, and it's going to be this lock up very, very nice there, and that's going to be the gank gone. But that was very, very close. Able to keep both summoners there, but he went very low on that one.
Yeah, the double stun actually saving him there, because if he'd only hit one target, it would have been him going down to either did not have the health there, or he would have at least lost flash. The other side, they are going to go for this gank top lane.
Yeah, and that's going to be awful lot of damage onto Unhooking Rice. Has to flash away from that one. The red buff just ticking over there, taking him a little bit lower, but not going to go down on that. But that is 2 very solid ganks already in this one.
Yeah, probably wasn't worth going forward to get the W off. He probably would have had to flash anyway, because as you said, the red buff was ticking down on him. Either way, does blow the flash, so that's Cho'Gath again, another immobile champion, losing his summoner.
Yeah, and I'll have to see if the guys do decide to go back and try and take advantage of this. As you can see, Unhooking Rice taking an awful lot of damage. He's going to get hit up again by this Scion, putting an awful lot of damage and just bullying the Cho'Gath here in this one. So this is not the best start for the Cho'Gath up here. As we can already see, he's down an awful lot of CS.
Yeah, and it's a pretty easy matchup for the Scion, to be honest. As long as Scion can avoid getting silenced out of his Q consistently, he straight up has more damage in his kit and can tank a lot of the damage Cho'Gath offers.
Yeah, and he seems to be playing it very well, just catching Unhooking Rice again on the edge of that knock-up. So obviously very, very comfortable on this champion and knows how to bully the lane. So that'll be really, really good for the side of Instant Gaming if they can get advantage in the top lane, particularly if the health stays like that. Could see a TP play.
Yeah, and I was thinking, because, I mean, Praetorian Gaming opted to first pick this. They knew he was going to, he had the option to be counterpicked, so they had to known that he's going to either end up in a poor matchup or be in a matchup that he's comfortable enough on that he could dominate it at least later on, maybe not in the lane. So maybe he thinks he can out-team fight the Scion. It'd be unusual, not often seen, but it's possible.
Yeah, I'll have to see exactly what he brings out later on in this game. As Peabody is actually going to get locked up by the Trundle pillar there, able to jump to safety to the minions there, so nothing going to come of it. The stun just going a little bit wide there, but you can see definitely the pressure being put on by this by this Praetorian bot lane.
Yeah, and you can see the Jhin starting to amass the small CS lead, but edging out early can mean the better first back, which is key for a lot of AD carries, because they can pick up that early BF sword. We'll see if Jhin opts for either that IE start or the Essence Reaver start. Both are decent. I mean, the Essence Reaver can keep you in putting out damage in lane longer and make CSing that much easier when you can consistently use your Q to get it. But Sivir, I mean, can opt for either. We'll have to go for that Essence Reaver, and from there she's just able to quickly take the wave without really paying attention to it.
Yeah, exactly, especially when she has that spell shield as well, and so much of that is going to be coming out of the Jhin. Should be able to rack up an awful lot of that mana back up. As you can just see, Graves hovering around the spot side, but looks like he's just going to be taking the scuttle. Don't know if he's going to look for anything in this bot lane.
And this is the second game I've casted where unfortunately we've had an Air Dragon early on, which means, honestly, doubt there's going to be a huge amount of contention for it. It's not the worst, and buddy up to just jump out there quickly, but yeah, the Air Dragon is probably the worst of the elemental dragons, so I can't imagine they're going to put too much emphasis on it. On the other side of the map though, I'd be interested to see if they can get a good gank off in the top lane. They should really look towards that Rift Herald, because it is so strong in this patch.
Yeah, it is crazy strong. It's actually, Sharks has gone into this bot lane. That's going to be the Trundle stunned up. An awful lot of damage put onto him. Forced to flash away. Nice pillar is going to knock everybody back away from Jhin. Just putting the damage back a little bit. But that is going to be the flash burn on the Trundle.
Yeah, and once they hit this level 6 in the bot lane, they could really set off here. They could, as long as True Dark Soul and Peabody here hit level 6 first, they have a massive amount of engage to quickly get them down. Otherwise, if Villain hits that level 6 first, he's able to turn it completely around with Subjugate, and it looks like Wave's going to push for them, so Villain's going to have that Subjugate up for the engage.
Yeah, Villain looks like he's trying to bait a little bit here with Princely Prince hovering around that bot lane. He's going to try and get the slingshot, but is just going to back away in the end, so nothing going to come of that. They must have sniffed something out in that, as Unhooking Ride's taking an awful lot of damage again in this one. I mean, Shogat will have that built in sustain, but really not doing much against the Scion.
Yeah, and he can, if he was last hitting just that little bit better, he'd have much better mana sustain, but as it is, he's run himself out of mana pretty consistently. Mr. Ducky's done the same, but you see, even just that fully charged Q is enough to quickly kind of half health that Cho'Gath, and he does have to sit back and try to sustain it back up.
Yeah, but both of them running seriously low on mana in this one, so probably not going to see too much trading here. So Unhooking Rise will get a little bit of reprieve and we'll be able to CS up, hopefully get a little bit of that CS differentiation back up. We can see Sharks hovering around at the bottom of that. As actually, I am forever just trading back here onto the Orianna, taking an awful lot of damage there. The Thunderlord's proc helping out very much there for the Orianna. So that's going to be just a nice little bit of trading, but it is still a loss for the Orianna on that CS.
I was wondering why Sharks decided to go to the top lane. There was no way that gank was ever coming off. There was a massive wave for Mr. Ducky, was going to consistently push in. It was a much better time for the Zac to gank, but they had a ward, so if he had come, Sion could have just backed off. So it was kind of a waste of Sharks' time, honestly, to just sit around there. Would have been much better off just backing off and continuing to farm up. His full bot side jungle is up.
Yeah, a little bit questionable there, as we can just see. He's going to hand off that blue to the Annie there, so that's going to be both mid laners with their blue buffs here. But yeah, a little bit questionable there, particularly when he does maybe want to play around this bot side a bit. But he's going to find Princely Prince here, clearing out a ward. We can see not really putting much damage onto him so far. That Zac is already looking a little bit tanky.
Yeah, I think what Sharks should do, look to just continue to scale up, because Graves' strength is in his quick and efficient farming. Right now, he's being out-farmed by the Zac, who isn't played. So, should look to really kind of make his gank path, not even his gank paths, but his jungle clear quick and efficient, because he can clear out his full jungle and then go gank. It's not difficult for Graves. Right now, he's in a lot of danger of getting caught out by that Zac, who's taking the scuttle right beside him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That Ignite is definitely helping the Zac clear out that jungle. You know, obviously these new strats coming in, just Princely Prince ahead of the meta. But yeah, it's just going to be not really much going on at the moment. Again, more trading. I am forever starting to take an awful lot of damage in this one. He's going to have to be very careful, because if he does get locked up by the Zac, we can already see that Handsome Dogo has no problem half health in him. So with the damage and the easy lockup for the Oriana ult, that could be a very dead Annie.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly expecting a lot more from these teams early on. They're playing it very safe and just choosing not to really engage any fights and sit back and let themselves scale. Both teams scale fine, so it's not the worst call, but realistically there's been plenty of opportunities for them to quickly put some pressure down in the lanes. They haven't opted to do it though.
Yeah, and it's a little bit unusual. I thought the Zac was going to definitely have a bit more pressure. It's actually Dogo getting stunned up here in the mid lane, but just going to try back and forth. There is the ultimate, and here is Prince. The flash away from Annie is going to keep him safe, although he is slowed with the smite. They are going to go underneath the tower, but they decide against it in the end. But that was very, very close there for I Am Forever.
Yeah, and if he just had a little bit better timing on that elastic slingshot, he could have followed it up immediately as the shockwave finished, and there wouldn't have been that gap to flash through. But does escape. Well played, Niani.
Yeah, and that is again going to be another flash burned in this one, but we did see it the last time. Actually, as Peabody's taking an awful lot of damage here, it's just going to be knocked around by the pillar, but is not going to be stunned up. And that's a couple of times now we've seen the Jhin send that skill shot wide. He really should be able to lock up these ones, particularly when they're slowed by the Trundle.
Yeah, again, a lane that puts out a lot of quick damage, especially now that they have that BF sword. They're in a really good spot to just run straight at them. Haven't really done so though. Again, this is the game, this is what I've been talking about. They sit back and play it extremely passively when right now they should be looking to build up their advantage, because this is a lane that wants to get ahead before they get out-rotated by the Sivir move speed.
Yeah, exactly. And that Sivir move speed as well is going to be very, very useful in getting onto the Jhin in this one. So he's going to definitely want to be able to put out that damage before he gets a lot of people on top of him. But they just don't seem to be able to make it work at the moment. And it's just going to be actually pretty even here. Only 8 CS in the bot lane, so hopefully they'll be able to do a little bit of something with this one as Villain. Again, just tanking up those Braum Qs to the face. But I was pretty happy with that. I mean, Trundle has an awful lot of sustain in this one.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing for me right now is definitely that Oriana build. Athene's Unholy Grail is no longer built on mid laners because it has such a low AP scaling. Oriana's one of the few where it's okay because she's a very supportive style mid laner, but she'd be doing so much better in these trades if she'd gone for that Abyssal or even just a Morellonomicon right now. But as it stands, she's just getting pretty easily beaten in trades where she's actually putting out more ability damage.
Yeah, and you really don't want to with kind of the damage the way it is. You've got a lot of bursts in the show, and we were supposed to be seeing a lot of bursts of the Oriana. Probably don't want that little bit, or losing out on that damage in your mid laner there in this one. Particularly when you're trying to lie then on that Jhin who's very immobile, as we've already talked about. But Unhooking Rice just taking a little bit of trade back here again, but he's going to be able to walk away from that one pretty easily.
And with the lack of action in this early game, I'm left to question the Ignite again, because Ignite isn't a summoner spell that scales that well, but in the meantime, it looks like they're going to have attempt to engage in the bot lane.
Yeah, looks like the caster cursing. This one is actually flashes galore coming out here. Trundle is going to get stunned up on this one. He does have his flash available, is able to just about make it out. The subjugate healing up quite nicely there. Peabody, though, is getting locked up. The Graves throwing out the Q there, but is not going to be able to take him down. But Prince in the top lane, knocking up the Scion here on this one. Will they have the follow-up? Where is the Q? Oh, it does catch them just on the edge there. That is going to be a slow, but it's just not going to be enough. Scion, so very tanky in this one with the Kel and with the Balmy Cinder. Not to go down, but again, across the map on this one, in the mid lane, I Am Forever, trading back for. That's going to be a lot of damage. That's going to be the Annie coming across with the Tibbers, but it's not going to be enough. Tibbers snapping back to Annie just as she gets out of range. But that was close calls across the map there.
Yeah, and again, like, the Zac has Ignite. He could have ignited there, attempted to take the kill, didn't work out there. I mean, Zac attempting to follow up in the mid lane, but again, he's just ganking lanes where they clearly don't have the damage left to finish off the laners. So he's actually, while he is able to CC things up, he's not able to fight them. And again, if he'd gone for fights like that, he straight up just doesn't have the damage right now. And he needs to be able to assess this and either build something like Runic Echoes into tank, or simply wait for his laners to be in spots where they've skirmished enough that their laners are low.
Yeah, exactly, and he's already opted for that Balmy Cinder, so won't be acting for that Runic Echoes like you were recommending, so he will need to wait a lot in this one, but Even we can see he's already getting toward. Sorry, his slingshot already has an awful lot of levels in it, but hasn't been able to really take advantage of it. And even then, when he ganked the mid lane there, not really the best slingshot. He ended up missing out on the Annie, but even then, probably wasn't enough damage to follow up on that one. As you can see again, just the wet noodle fight continues in the top lane.
Yeah, and when he went to the top lane, as you said, he wasn't really using the levels in his E when he decided to melee use it. So, some odd choices coming out from this Zac early on. Maybe he can make it work as he scales up. Again, would have been better if he'd chosen Flash, but not going to dwell on that for too long. See if he can make it work in these team fights, which they still have the possibility of this massive AoE damage block.
Yeah, maybe it is just the Ignite, just for that little bit of tick damage at the end to finish them off, because as you were saying, a lot of AoE, a lot of bursts, so maybe that's just what he's waiting for in this one. As we can see, he is hovering around the spot side, but again, he seems to be clearing out more wards than he seems to be doing ganks in this one.
I suppose it's a way to maintain pressure. Not a good way, but that's going to be the flash mid.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very dead Orianna. First blood coming out for Sharks in this one. A beautiful setup there with the stun coming out of the Tibbers and the follow-up damage. And that's going to be it for Handsome Doggo. Yeah, it's actually trading again in the bot lane. Sivir going very, very low in this one. The knockup is going to go through Peabody, keeping him safe in this one. And that's going to be the TP, but I don't think they want to re-engage on this one, especially with the Sivir so low. But he's actually going to try and turn him. There's the flash. Is he going to be enough? No, the weird placement of the ultimate in this one, but he's going to go very, very low. That's going to be a kill across for the Sion there, and will he be able to land the stun? The concussive blow stacks are very, very high on this one, but that's going to be them both backing off there, but that's going to be a very nice turnaround in the bot lane.
And yeah, they're just going to walk away from that one. Very odd curtain call, as you mentioned, does end up with Jhin dying, and there was also a ward behind them there, which Sion could have used, so he wouldn't have had to engage with the ult, or he could have knocked them up with Q, then engaged with ult. There's a lot better options when you're an immobile tank that is behind them, but instead he opted to TP to the tower. You saw that that went weirdly well, because he immediately followed it up with the ult. Then Jhin decided to start his ultimate while he was on 3 procs of concussive blows, immediately got stunned, died, and Michael's sniper was able to walk it off.
Yeah, it looked a little bit dangerous for the Sivir there in that one. Jhin trying to get that last execute off on his 4 shots, but that was not going to be it. As you can see, it actually was a very nice turnaround there. Just barely working out for them. But it looks like that's going to be a little bit of the pressure taken off. You see, even though, again, it is that not the dragon that you're really looking for, they weren't able to take it. Oh, sorry, it's not really worth their while taking it. But again, you were talking about it earlier on, it's weird to see so little pressure put into this Rift Herald.
Yeah, and I think they haven't even warded it. Either team right now could have just walked up to it and taken it. They have the tanks there to tank it up, and they have enough damage that they could take it quickly. Probably more towards its instinct side, because Graves is much better at taking it than 2 tanks are. So I would have expected at least an attempt at it, but I guess they just want to continue trading again, which Rift Herald would help with.
Yeah, it definitely would. It's actually Peabody is going to be in the wrong place here. That's going to be the lockup, and that's going to be the lockup following through. He's going very, very low on this one, and that's going to be Curtain Call in a nice position here. He's going to be able to slow them up, but they decide against following that through. So that's going to be a nice pickup onto Peabody, who was just caught out of position.
I think I was going to cry if he didn't use his Ignite there. He finally had the chance to use it. Did manage to at the last second for some reason, but does get the kill in the end. This is going to be the air dragon for them, which, again, while it's not the best of the dragons, probably the worst of them, it does help when you're against things like On the Hunt and you're on these immobile champions. That extra out of combat move speed means you might be able to get away from flanks in the nick of time.
Yeah, I think the next one is going to be even more interesting with that mountain buff. It's actually Princey. Prince caught it. That's going to be him going down very, very quickly. And with the AoE on this Tibbers, he's going to go down super quick. Dogo trying to help him out of there. But that's going to be the Zac going down. As we can see, just more trading in the top lane. But not too sure what he was thinking walking across the mid lane there.
Maybe he thought Shogath had the TP up and was hoping to be saved. He doesn't. He goes down and, yeah, kind of just walked himself into that one. Maybe some kind of mobility summoner spell would have helped.
I don't even know if he would have survived long enough in that one. That was an awful lot of bursts coming out of that Annie. And he just got melted. There was not much he could do at all. And that's going to be another kill a kill going over to this Annie, who we could see how much damage she is, and that's definitely going to help her out.
Yeah, and again, her build being a lot more damage-oriented than this Athene's Unholy Grail on the Orianna, so is just going to do more for the team in terms of AoE damage in these fights. The Rift Herald does end up committing suicide, left completely alone in this early game, so it will be swapped out for the Baron, and I can't imagine if they didn't want to contest Rift Herald that they're going to contest Baron anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a long time before that happens. Particularly with the Annie picking up that Hextech Proto Belt, she's going to be able to get into these fights very, very quickly. So maybe looking more towards a pick before they look towards anything like that.
Graves was actually waiting there, hoping that Zac would come up. Didn't end up running into him, and now it's going to be the 3-man top.
Yeah, and that's going to be the Zac coming in with the ball on top of him, but just gets out of range there. It's not going to be enough. He needs to put that back in, but it's not going to be able to, which means that Scion and Graves barely scraping it. Actually, True Darrell's gone very, very low in this one. The Braum coming in time with this shield is going to be able to hopefully keep him safe, but it did look a little bit like he's about to walk away from him. But that it was very, very close there. On a Hunt had to be popped as well to get him out of that one.
Yeah, and Orianna ended up sombreroing that ultimate instead of actually using it. So the cooldown's up. Not the best way to play that top lane fight, but they still do get a little bit of an advantage from it because their bot lane decided to do work in the meantime.
Yeah, unlucky it was just the Zac jumping in that little bit too far ahead, which meant that she couldn't keep the ball on top of him, so ends up sombrering that one in the end, which is really not ideal. But we were talking about the synergy that could happen between Princely Prince and Handsome Dogo, but we really haven't seen it so far in any of these plays.
Yeah, in the meantime, though, we're looking at this Annie has finished up the Hextech Proto Belt. This is what I wanted to see because now suddenly the Annie has so much more engage options, and most of them are just run straight forward and kill them, which we saw she was given the opportunity to do in the mid lane from the jungler, which was an odd choice, but now she can actually do so with Orianna, and even with that little bit of MR from Athene's Unholy Grail, it should not be enough to save her.
But at least it gives us a nice example of the things that are possibly to come. So we will just have to see exactly what she can do with this one, because we already seen she had no problem using those flash to get the engage onto the Orianna. So especially with the Proto Belt and that flash up, she's going to be coming in very, very quickly into these fights. It's actually Villain caught out a little bit here. Is going to get just stunned up and walk away from this one. But again, these supports seem to be getting caught out an awful lot.
Yeah, Villain actually hasn't even built any health, so he is just relying on his armor to keep him alive here. That's why you're seeing him get chunked out pretty quickly by things like the red buff. So now Princely Prince is going to try a lane gank after being seen in the lane. Just walks into the brush, walks out. So some odd pathing, honestly, from both junglers here, as they just seem to be sitting around and seeing if either team wants to fight, knowing that both are at a disadvantage.
It's about that presence, though. That's what he's really coming in for, just to show them who's boss. Say, I don't care if you see me. There's a possibility that I'm going to come at you anyway. But he is going to do the same in the mid lane as well. So I think that might be a little bit inefficient to do it twice.
Yeah, that time he was just looking to go straight to Raptors, so at least there was an objective in mind. He is starting to get a little less efficient in his clears, though. You can see he's leaving his wolves up and such. Like, just skipping camps means you just lose out on that potential gold, and gold per minute, realistically.
Yeah, exactly. We were only talking about it earlier on in this game, how the Zac was ahead of the Graves, but Shark's doing a nice job of picking up that CS again. Bringing it back. He's actually at 20 CS, almost a 20 CS lead here. So that's going to be reflecting quite well on him in this one.
Yeah, I like the Hexdrinker pickup for him as well. He is against a lot of AP. Realistically, the only AD is on that Trundle, which shouldn't be building any, and Jhin. So it should be pretty good for Sharks here if he can get that Hexdrink, if he can get that Mob Malmortius, and then he can quickly tank up all these fights, and it's just going to be that much harder to deal with them. Now he can just focus on building up that damage and completely deleting any other options.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly when you look at the amount of... We've already said it, before. When you look at the amount of damage that's coming in on the side of Instinct Gaming here. As we can... I love the way we keep popping back to see these wet noodle fights. I hold about 10 damage done in these trades the entire time. Jhin going to be putting a lot of poke onto this bottom tower, but it's going to take him a while to hammer that down.
Yeah, and I think that's basically what we're seeing with this game as a whole. Nothing's really happening until Annie finds a catch, or they attempt to fight and they mess it up. So there's just, like, They just seem to have no way to like turn on the switch of we can actually get a kill here. Even though there's plenty of places they could do so, they continue to go top lane to fight where there is zero option to do so. Because as you can see, neither top laners actually do damage to each other, so it's completely reliant on anyone else coming in to follow it up, which they just don't have yet. Like, this Cho'Gath is already stacking up armor. Graves can't do anything to him, and that's going to be Zac trying to fight in the mid lane. Misses the elastic slingshot, not much going to happen. Sharks is going to try respond, but again, it's just these failed initiations on targets that just aren't going down.
Yeah, and that can be a little bit worrying as this game progresses, because of course Zac hasn't had the best success with these slingshots, and he is mostly the main engage, I'd say, for his team in this one. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can fix that, because he really needs to play that engage tool in these fights.
Yeah, and I think Praetorian are going to have to rely on that, as you said, because they've picked champions that really don't do it well themselves. You saw Orianna relied on that to get the ball into the fights and went a little bit out of range, but even still, the idea is there. They need the Zac to go in first, then you can follow it up with the Cho'Gath Orianna and even the Jhin and Trundle as well. So there's just a lack of damage coming out for the Praetorian side, and on the other side, it's all their damage is front-loaded onto Annie, and Graves hasn't been able to get any off, or at least any off onto targets that aren't Cho'Gath. So just needs to find an opening in a lane that they can actually kill. So he's going to hover around this bot lane. This is the good choice here. Probably better off sticking to that mid lane, because again, you saw what happened early on. That's still completely an option. They can still completely destroy that Orianna if Annie just flash engages or even proto-built engages. But in the bot lane, it's going to be that much harder, because Braum does have to somehow get the concussive blows proc.
Yeah, and especially with the surprising amount of damage that does come out with that proto-belt pickup, you can see he's going to try and put some damage in here so they can try and get the tower, with just barely holding on in this one. But yeah, that proto-belt damage does an awful lot, so just adding to the burst that we can see coming out onto this Orianna. She will have the shield, but it probably won't be enough. I mean, it's a huge amount that comes out from the two of them.
This laning phase is just never ending. This is like, it's 27 minutes into the game. It's like, do you want to leave lane? Do you want to take outer towers? No, we're gonna stay here. We're gonna skirmish. We're gonna not do damage. We're gonna not try kill. Let's farm.
But hopefully we can see them hovering around maybe for this dragon. This could be a big one. The mountain dragon, the mountain drake even is very helpful in taking down these towers, particularly with the two short range AD carries that we're seeing coming out of both teams. So maybe we could see these teams decide to fight around this. But again, Zac just doing his war clearing job, and that's all it really seems to be for the moment.
I mean, at this point, Graves would have been better off building armor, because at least then they could have done a tower dive.
Yeah, especially with... Yeah, there's just so much that they could have done. I was really hoping to possibly see this Scion use his ultimate a little bit more, because we were talking about... previously Bush was a very, very big Scion player, was very well renowned for hitting that level 6 and instantly going towards that bot lane, using the ultimate to try and pick up a kill or at least burn a few flashes there, and then TPing back to the top lane. But Ducky really hasn't been using the ultimates too much, apart from that one TP play that we saw in the bot lane.
Yeah, and even then, he waited for the rest of his team to fight, whereas he can be an initiation for his team. So just the passive play from these two teams is just unnecessary for the most part, is kind of what we're coming back to, because they could play further forward, they could look for fights, and they could win, but they have to do something.
Yeah, I think it's been a very rare moment where I've seen AD carries with 2 items completed and still not having a tower taken, although as I say that, it does go down in the bot lane.
There it is.
That's going to be the first one of the game.
Oh, and in the meantime, Dogger looked to follow up with the second.
I don't know, man. That could be a little bit greedy here.
I don't know, man. Looks like they're going to make all the map moves. There's actually going to be a map rotation as well. They've only lost 2 dragons in the meantime, but they're finally going to move and actually fight for an objective.
And yeah, it looks like there's a lot of people hovering around this mid lane. don't know if much is going to come out. But I was actually going to say at the start of the game that I didn't know if we were going to make it to the 35-minute mark to see. Oh, it was actually Handsome Doggo go super low, instantly deleted off the map. That's going to be Princely Prince going in and just bopping his way straight back out. As Peabody comes across on the side, he is going to get that Glacial Fissure down. It's going to slow up everybody here. Is able to get onto Villain. He's going to be locked up again. Is he going to go down? That is going to be it. That's all she wrote for the Trundle in this one. And that's going to be 2 very quick kills coming across for Instinct in this one.
Yeah, but again, that's been an option from about 10 minutes ago. They could have done that at any point before that. They still get it, they still get the advantage off it, and now it's gotten so late into the game that they can get a huge amount off this. Sion could cancel that, he does. They should get another tower, they can continue forward here. Death timers are so long.
Yeah, and that's going to be super, super nice. The 2 towers in the mid lane picked up there. So even though they did lose the 2 outer towers in bot and mid lane, they have traded it back there with some very nice play. And the Annie instantly going in on that one. There was no hesitation, which was fantastic to see.
Yeah, I mean, again, would have been nice to see that a little while ago. Though, you know, this game doesn't last an extra amount of time. But you know what? They're going to go for it. They're going to use On the Hunt to make sure, you know, this time we're really going to chase down this tower.
Yeah, I think Sivir might have got her ult a little bit wrong there. It used to give attack speed, but hasn't been like that for a couple of patches now. So it's just kind of using that for no particular reason. But they did get to that tower super, super quickly. And
it didn't escape. It took it down before it could manage to TP away. So all good choices, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah. Great success coming out for Instinct Gaming in that one. But at least that is going to be another tower picked up for them in this one. So it is going to be a nice 4k difference coming out for Instinct Gaming in this one. And we'll have to see if they can make any use of it, because as we were saying, it's very, very slow for them to actually take advantage of their leads.
Yeah, but if they can manage to get this second Mountain Drake, that's a huge amount of damage they can put down on towers. And you saw that they quickly took 2 towers when they won a fight. They can easily take the Baron or that Inhib tower if they can manage to take another one, and they have 2 Mountain Drakes. They can push down so quickly at this point of the game, because while it doesn't look like it, it is actually well past that mid-game point. Is actually starting to head in towards a kind of mid to late game point. So they can quickly take objectives here, and they can quickly end a game if it does come down to it.
Yeah, and what I was trying to make before that fight kicked off in the mid lane is that when they started this game, I didn't know if we're going to actually make it to that 35-minute mark. We were going to see the Elder Drake coming out. We were talking about how often we thought they would fight in this one. As I'm saying that, there's a 4-man hit squad going up to this top lane to try and help out the Sion, get this last tower down. But it looks like our Shogun even just backing away from this one. Doesn't want anything to do with this. But that's 2 people running toward. Again, we see On the Hunt pops. But we see the Jhin and the Trundle looking for that mid lane tower. As actually the ultimate from the Sion comes through. Whiffs on that one. But Peabody is here. Can he get some of the lockup? There's one lockup. There's the ultimate coming out from Orianna. The Zac is going to come in on top of it. That's going to be the Shogun going down very, very quickly in this one. Is not going to be ideal for them, as Handsome Dogger going very, very low, is barely able to stay alive. The bouncing blade, not enough there. But it is going to be the Jhin and the Trundle battering down on this mid lane tower.
They could have base raced that. They might have been able to beat up the Orianna. They could quickly have dove her there. Decided to go against it. They still lose the tower, so I think the wrong decision there to back, but overall they could have just run it straight down that top lane or just gone to the Baron. Either one of them would have had them pull out ahead, because they only realistically needed 1 or 2 people to stop that Jhin Trundle, because they're not in that strong a spot.
Yeah, a little bit of a weird call coming out. They definitely could have tried to push through. That tower had already gone down. You could see how quickly they could get rid of that Orianna, so most of the damage was going to be lacking there for Praetorian. But again, nice answer, to be honest, out of Praetorian. I mean, seeing the opportunity to try and push down this mid lane, that was really good pickup for them.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me in that fight, though, was the fact you saw the shockwave go down. It did hit multiple members, but didn't actually do any damage, because again, this Athene's Unholy Grail and the Void Staff pickup, they're not looking to like break through tanks here. You need flat AP, and she simply doesn't have it with this build.
Yeah, was a little bit surprised by the lack of damage that was coming out on that one. I thought it was going to be much more. As we were saying, they're very far into this game despite what the state of it looks like. So I was hoping there'd be a lot more damage coming out from the Orianna, but really just wasn't there, as actually we can see Instant Gaming lining up for this dragon.
This is going to be an objective fight. No, they're walking away. They're going to give it. They're actually not going to fight it. Okay. Never mind, something was going to happen, but we're just going to watch them take this dragon for free.
Yeah, and that's probably just a lack of practice on the side of Instant Gaming here, not knowing that the Shogat TP was still down, so they did have the advantage. But as I said, that Shogat coming across there on the side, there is a lot of. There goes the Bromos going down, and that's going to be an Orianna with the ultimate there, and he flashes in. That's going to be the Tibbers along with the Scion ulti. That's a lot of people locked up again and again, and that's going to be one kill already. The Trundle going down. Uncooking Rice is going to be the next to fall. And I Am Forever barely able to survive that. The Hextech Protocol doing work in that one, and that's going to be a clean sweep. Or sorry, a lot of kills coming across, not a clean sweep, but nobody going down on the side of Instant Gaming.
Yeah, and you saw what happened there was they did that massive AoE damage you're talking about. Didn't look like much because the only people they caught in it were the 3 tanks, but still, they still have so much AoE damage. They managed to get through the 3 tanks at once. Annie was busy fighting Orianna on the side as soon as Tibbers went down. Ended up winning even though Hextech Protobelt missed entirely. The move speed was the movement was still enough that she was in range to use the rest of her abilities and quickly killed the Orianna straight afterwards. So again, if Orianna had more flat AP, she'd just be so much more useful right now. As is though, she's losing the fights and the rest of the team is suffering for it.
Yeah, we can see just again that Orianna was able to just catch only the Annie with the lockup there. Weren't able to get that synergy again between the Zac and the Ori that we were hoping for. So it ends up resulting in a very nice team fight for Instinct Gaming. So just overall, again, solid play coming out of Instinct Gaming.
Yeah, and I'm glad they definitely should have gone for that fight, and I'm glad they did, because you can see how well they have the option to fight, especially when people are forced into these like close quarters fights, because the AoE onto the tanks, even when they miss both carries, they still win the fight super hard, because when Jhin is forced to auto-attack tanks, he doesn't do anything. He couldn't get past them. His tanks were busy being killed for him to get past that line, and his Orianna was off to the side being fought by Nani.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the Sivir already has that last whisper picked up, even nothing like that on the side of the Jhin here, so not able to get through these tanks in the same way. But just the Trundle being a nuisance here in this one, knocking people up so they can't have their backs.
Yeah, so I'm waiting to see if they can really make this comp work from the side of Praetorian, because it's a comp that is really good at quickly bursting people down or surviving for extended amounts of time. The only way they could do that, though, is if they don't get caught up as they were previously. So if maybe the Trundle hadn't been caught up in that, or even the Cho'Gath, maybe they could have tried turn it with some good consistent damage coming out with the abilities. But again, it's a comp that isn't really picked because it just lacks that team fighting ability.
Yeah, and it's that team fighting ability that they really need in this one. Both team, Instant Gaming hovering around the Baron here, just going to clear out a few wards, but I think Praetorian have sniffed it out here, going to try and get a few wards down for themselves. So might be seeing a dragon fight, a Baron fight even, coming up fairly shortly. Sion is in that bot lane and doesn't have the TP, so it may end up being a 4v5 if they commit to this one.
Like at this point, yeah, they can quickly burst down this Baron. They could have cleared out the ward first, though. They might have been better caught. Does the pink ward actually not see it?
I think that's actually the bug spot. You can get it just right so it can't be seen and it can't be auto-attacked, so they may have no idea it's there. Although the Zac gets caught out there, does not end up finishing his jump. Peabody very, very low in this one. Forced to flash out. Princely Prince is hopping up and down on this Baron, trying to get a little bit more damage onto it. I Am Forever getting silenced there, not able to follow up, and that's going to be them backing up. But Sion pushing towards onto this inhibitor turret is just going to be battling away against the Orianna. But
why did they back off? It was on 2k health. Either team could have taken that.
Yeah, I think Princely Prince was questioning it there. You could see he was hovering around in the pit, but neither team wanted to commit to this. Both very, very scared of the damage that can come out from both sides. But with the Orianna missing and up against the Sion in the bot lane, I think it could have been okay for Instant Gaming to engage in that one.
It would have been okay for either. The Glacial Fissure cancelling out the Elastic Slingshot was huge. That gave them about 3 autos from each person. That would have quickly burned down that Baron and they could have quickly smited for it. Or, once the Zac had them caught up and they all backed off, he could have just stayed there. The rest of his team had swept around, which was the right response. The wrong response was to just not do anything after they'd swept.
We can see actually he has found that ward that was hovering around the backside, so they've successfully cleared that out. So going to be hovering around again for this Baron, but just leaving the Scion in the bot lane to do work on this tower every single time.
They're sending the wrong people to deal with him. They sent Orianna and Jhin to fight him. Orianna's going to be the one there, just going to wave clear against him, and he is dealing with his Zarot's portal as well, but it doesn't really matter to him. As long as he draws 2 people who don't have TP up, this is a free Baron.
Yeah, and they're not going to stop him in this one. He's still holding on to that ultimate. They're chasing him down, but without much there comes the Jhin ultimate through. Is not hurting this Scion in the slightest. He is so tanky in this one. There's the ultimate pop, and there's the Baron going over, and we're going to see the fight start up. Villain going down instantly in this one, as it looks like that might be all she wrote. On the hunt is popped. They're going to go away from this one, looking towards this mid inhibitor turret.
Yeah, and the Unstoppable Onslaught was available for the Scion, which he ended up using in the end to get away. Recently, he probably could have just walked it, because they don't have damage, and when Jhin decided to use Curtain Call, unless it finishes him off, once Jhin gets out of it, he can't output any more damage, because he was left way far behind. As it is, Sion's just going to TP up to the bot lane, CP down to the bot lane. Might have wanted to TP up to this fight and just end the game, but, you know, let's take this slow. They've decided to do that for the rest of the game, why not now?
Yeah, but it is going to be this inhib going down, and that's going to be the first one of the game over for Instinct Gaming. Scion is pushing in this bot lane, but they are not deciding to rotate over to him, so he might want to back up a little bit before he has 4 of these members, 5 of these members even now, coming down on top of him. He is going to lock up Jhin here, but he's not going to chase him underneath the tower. Trundle is coming through. He does have the pillar locked up, but the Scion Unstoppable Onslaught is up again, so will be able to escape from this one if he needs to. He does not hit Trundle there, but he's just going to delay enough so they can get the Elder Dragon for his team.
Yeah, now they can just group bot lane and do that over again. It looks like they're going to back off first, take the blue buff away, and now they just have all the resources available, and they can just straight up run into the base and they win. The response has been to build 2 Zarot's portals, which aren't really being built anymore because they're not that useful since, first of all, the 5 health tick, and they're just not as slot efficient anymore now that both the armor and the magic resist were nerfed on them. So, odd choice there. We're looking to put down side lane pressure. Isn't the best call when you've already lost Baron and the Elder Dragon. The idea of side lane pressure is you're supposed to use it to take objectives.
Yes, but at least Praetorian is thinking of portals on this one, so hopefully he'll be able to stop them, or help them even a little bit on this one, against the Scion split push, which has just been doing an awful lot of work. Even though he hasn't had the TP to get to a lot of these fights with his team, he's drawn so many people down, it's really worked out for them.
Yeah, and unfortunately Instinct are making the most fundamental mistake you can do when you have an inhibitor down and you have Baron. Pushing mid. You don't need to do it on the lane you already have taken down. You should go to those side lanes. They are doing so now, and they're finally getting some work done. Braum should join his team, though.
Yeah, and that's going to be the Trundle pillar just missing out on the Sivir there, not able to lock her up. Peabody going very far forward in this one is trying to get those those stacks up, and that's going to be the ultimate coming across. Shark's very, very forward in this one, is onto the backline, but he's in the wrong place, and that's going to be him going down very, very quickly, and that's going to be the ultimate, bringing back in the Sivir. She's going to be caught out here as well. Is going to be the Braum going down first, but the Sivir is going to be next to follow very, very shortly. But in the top lane, we do see that tower going down already. I don't know why they've left the support alone with the Sivir. She has an awful lot of damage, and it's actually going to be Villain who goes down in the end. I don't know why they left him to try and finish him off. That is not the right person you want to take down the AD carry.
Yeah, they still end up getting the inhibitor, so it's somewhat worth it. They could have won that fight a lot harder if they just simply played it better. Like, they still end up getting the top inhib tower though, and the bottom inhib. So now they could just continue to run into the base because there's nothing really Instinct can do to stop this. Their wave clear is really poor because Orianna doesn't have damage and Jhin isn't a wave clear champion. Cannon, not static Shiv. So they're kind of relying on their portals to wave clear, which Praetorian are in, or which Instinct even are in a pretty good spot to just walk up to and kill.
Yeah, and it's, especially with this 11k lead, they're so far ahead in this move. You can see the amount of damage that's coming out on Instinct Gaming. It's going to be very, very difficult for Praetorian to hold them in this one. They are looking towards this bot lane, so maybe just going to wait until the Braum and the rest of the team can catch up there. So we'll probably see them just push on into this inhibitor.
I want to look for a Baron timer because I feel like for some reason, even though this game is completely finishable, we're going to have to wait that long.
Yeah, but I didn't want to say it though.
And I'm not sure if Jhin realizes that his ult is an execute, supposed to wait for them to get low before he uses it. And right now he opted to use it for wave clear, I think, and he's using it at the start of fights. It's just, there's a reason he's not doing any damage, and it's not his build, and it's not just the tanks. It's, the fact is, he's just using his ult, and then by the time he's finished, he's just got nothing left.
Yeah, and that's going to be a finish coming out on Villain. He's dead already, but that's going to be a nice Oriana shockwave into the back door. That's going to be Ali taken down as well. The Shogun is in the front line, tanking up an awful lot. That is going to be another kill going across. He goes down, and that's going to be all that it is for the moment. It's going to be the inhib going down. Silver is not going to get caught by the Zac slow, and that's going to be a very nice damage. Actually, Peabody gets shot down by the sniper, and that is not what he wanted to do at all.
Yeah, but now Curtain Call would actually be the right call. Doesn't have it up because he used it earlier in the mid lane though, so they're going to just walk away from this. But he could have gotten 2 more kills if he'd had that Curtain Call up. So just, that's the power of using your abilities in the right order at the right times. And they end up still losing all 3 inhibitors. They're stuck in their base. Yes, they managed to avoid losing the game, but barely.
Yeah, and you can see a really nice shockwave in the back lane, but again, there was just no damage coming up. This build is really not doing work for her in this one, especially when she caught the squishies there, so they were the ones that she should have been able to put the damage out onto, but it meant that they weren't able to take them down fast enough. Sivir able to lifesteal up through it and was able to put out a huge amount of damage in that team fight.
Okay, a minute till Baron, the inhib is up. You can go in, take that mid inhibitor, and walk back to the Baron. If they try fight you on it, you just let the minions end. A third Zeroth portal has been built, for some reason that I cannot explain.
Yeah, but the thing is as well that Elder Dragon comes up soon after Baron, so they might want to hang on for that as well.
I don't think so. It is a 10-minute timer for it once it goes down.
True, yeah.
It is so long because it's such a powerful buff that you saw kind of underutilized there. When they did fight, they'd already been caught out, so it didn't really give them that much combat effectiveness. Honestly, it would be a lot more useful if this team hadn't just kind of landed themselves in late game from laning phase. But here we are, we're kind of just stuck in it. It's 15 seconds till the Baron. They're going to take this one for free. Don't know why they're even trying to death brush this. They could just quickly burn down the Baron, but looks like Zac and Trundle might walk into it.
Yeah, and they had vision that entire time, but they don't really want to opt into that. I don't know, I thought Annie would have stayed in the brush. She's definitely going to be the one that's got the most amount of instant lockup. Trundle is going to be the unfortunate one to come in here. He's going to go down super quickly in this one, and that's going to be a Baron, I'm assuming, for Instinct Gaming here.
And, okay, you know, I think now she's just, like, she must think it's attack speed, like, if you want to consistently get that much attack speed, just take Warwick. At least his W is supposed to do that. Anyway, the idea here is like there was no need for Trundle to walk up because they had the blue ward already in the pit. They knew that Baron wasn't going down, so it was either a death brush or they're not getting anything useful. So he could have simply waited for them to at least start it. Even then, they still could have death brushed it and won out, but it wouldn't have been all 5 members burning him so quickly.
Yeah, and with 13 seconds still remaining on this Trundle, that's going to be Actually, I thought they were going to go for the inhibitor, but they've gone for the one that isn't up, so I think they're just looking to push these minions through onto the Nexus turret, but there's still an awful lot of wave clear coming out. On this one, Jin actually taking an awful lot of damage on that backline. That's not what he wanted at all, and he's going to have to return to base, so that's going to be just the inhibitor going across, and they're moving towards this bot lane to get that final one. And that's going to be, basically at that point you can sit in the base and not even worried about doing damage because the minion's going to do it for you.
Actually, the best thing about these Zeroth portals is that Raptor Slug move speed while they're stuck beside their structures. So at least there's something positive coming out of it. Because you see, the Zeroth portals are very quick to take down. They're helping with wave clear, but they're just, as soon as Instinct actually try push, it just is completely useless. And you see, Princey Prince trying to get in there.
Oh, and there's a flash engage from Annie, and that's going to be Ariana dead instantly. Princely Prince does not have the flash to get out of this one. That's going to be him going into his blob form there. I Am Forever in the front line here, putting out the damage, and that's going to be all she wrote here in this one. That should be definitely a Jin on the... Oh, he's actually up to snipe the Braum in the back line, going definitely for his namesake there. is trying to do what he can here, but is in the middle of reloading. Sivir, will she be able to put out the damage? That's actually an awful lot of reverse damage coming out. She is going to go down into the GA as Sharks is tanking up the tower here. That's going to be Jin taking up another kill here. Will he be able to hold on? He's putting out a huge amount of damage. Sharks sitting very low, but does have the GA. That's going to be him going down as well. White Cool Sniper is going to be taken down by Sion, and that is going to be it. There's no way I'm thinking unhooking Rice would be able to hold him in this one, and that is going to be it. That's a Nexus tower going down, and that's going to be a GG for Instant Gaming.
That took so long. They could have just walked in and just autoed the towers. They would have taken that immediately. Either way, they do still get it. They still get the towers. They still get the Nexus. So it is the game to Instant Gaming.
Yeah, and that is going to be it for us tonight. Thank you very much for joining us in this one, and we will catch you again later.